What's the word, Harrisburg? My name is Matt Maisel, and our guest right now is someone who is very accustomed to helping people in Harrisburg, except those people are coming from all over the world. It is our pleasure right now to welcome Alex Swan, who's the site director for Church World Service, CWS, as many people may better know it by, here in Harrisburg. Thank you so much for joining us. Not only that, but thank you for all the work that you're doing to help refugees throughout the region. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so to someone who doesn't understand exactly what CWS does, is it fair to say in the most basic terms you help resettle refugees here in Harrisburg?
Yeah, that's really our bread and butter here in Harrisburg. Church World Service as an organization is a global organization. They have a footprint in over 30 countries around the world. But the offices that are located throughout the United States, including here in Harrisburg, are focused on refugee resettlement.
Is there one particular country that you are experiencing more than others? I know, like, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I know Minneapolis has a very strong Somali refugee movement. Lancaster, which is where Church World Service started in the 1980s here in central Pennsylvania, has a strong Syrian refugee population. What are you seeing, at least since you opened back in February or March, is the main area where you're seeing a lot of resettlements from?
Yeah, absolutely. So, historically, Harrisburg has had a huge Nepalese population, probably the second biggest in the country behind Columbus.
Really?
Yeah, interestingly. And then on the West Shore, we have a very big Somali population. In terms of when our office opened in February, the immediate response was to the fall of Kabul and the Afghans that came to our country. And so from February, March, and April, the people that we were serving were just from Afghanistan. We served from February of this year until September 30th, which is the end of the federal fiscal year, 36 Afghans. And then in addition to Afghanistan, our other biggest populations that we've been seeing are coming from the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as Syria, are the other big two. And then we've had a few families from various countries, including Guatemala, Iraq, Central African Republic, different places like this.
There's a lot of follow-up questions. I'm going to try to get to each one and I want to start with the first thing you said, which is Harrisburg has the second largest Nepalese refugee population in the country.
Yeah, so, not all of those came as refugees, but some of them did. And then as generations got established in this community, they started immigrating in other ways. But yeah, if you look at just the community of Harrisburg at large, the biggest population by far is Nepalese.
Why do you think that is?
I think Harrisburg is just such a welcoming and diverse place. And it's been really neat to see, people who originally came here as refugees kind of find their home and their roots here in this community, and they embrace it, and they bring their own traditions and values with them, but then also, give so much back to our community through entrepreneurship. You look at, Harrisburg and all the businesses that have been started by refugees and immigrants. And so I think because of the success that they've had here, they want to bring their family and just continue to expand upon that growing community that they've established here.
Do you know off the top of your head what the local Nepalese population is approximately?
I don't. I know that it's very big and continues to grow. And like I said, I think it's only Columbus, Ohio that technically has the bigger population.
Well, they have us in terms of football team, but other than that, Harrisburg is far better than Columbus.
Yeah.
And you brought up a really interesting point because you mentioned the West Shore and population on the West Shore, which is to say you're not just Harrisburg proper, you serve the region as a whole, correct?
Correct, yes. Technically, we can serve refugees and immigrants 100 miles from our office. Our focus and our core is in Harrisburg, but we have a very big and growing Afghan population in Carlisle. And we have a few families that are spread out in, Hershey and New Cumberland. We even have some Syrian families that are located in Chambersburg. So it's been really neat to, have a home base here in Harrisburg, but then also kind of embrace the greater Harrisburg area and see the community respond to that.
How has your job changed since the war in Ukraine?
Yeah, so as of right now, it hasn't changed that much, but we are starting to see some changes. More specifically, in response to the war in Ukraine, the federal government stood up the United for Ukraine program. And something that's unique about that program compared to historically how refugee resettlement's been done in the United States is that Ukrainians are being privately sponsored through the United for Ukraine program. And so our role as a resettlement agency is essentially to get out in the community and find these people who are fleeing war and violence from Ukraine and let them know that we're here and that we're able to help. And so we're kind of filling in the gaps of the services that maybe the sponsor doesn't have a complete grasp, or they just need some additional assistance finding housing or finding jobs, these other critical things. So our role in the Ukrainian program is finding them and delivering services to fill in the gaps to make sure that they have a home here in Harrisburg.
Do you expect to see, I mean, I hate to say it's only been 8 months, but it's only been 8 months. And a lot of these other areas that you mentioned, whether it be Somalia, Afghanistan, Democratic Republic of Congo, these are areas which have been war-torn for decades, generations.
Sure.
Do you expect to see a greater a shift, if you will, in terms of refugees, immigrants coming from Ukraine who are fleeing that area?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think Ukraine obviously would like to see their population come back at one point
Sure.
when it's safe to do that. And I think that's still the primary focus and goal. But for the time being, as the war continues, resettlement agencies are stepping up and anticipating greater Ukrainian populations to come to their communities. And so, we've been rallying the community and developing resources to appropriately respond to that crisis. But like you said, you made a really good point in that, so much of refugee resettlement is focused on the crisis of the day and the headlines that make the news. But we also want to make sure people understand that there are populations like you talked about, especially, Democratic Republic of Congo, Syria, et cetera, that have had decades of war and violence. And so we want to make sure that we're also responding to those long-term crises as well.
There's 2 local locations. We mentioned the one in Lancaster, which has been serving the region since, the late 80s?
Correct, yep.
And now Harrisburg, which just opened earlier in 2022. What does it mean to have those 2 locations? Why was a Harrisburg location needed? Why was it necessary to open a Harrisburg location? And what does having that extra location here in central Pennsylvania mean for the immigrant community?
Yeah, it's been really neat to see that play out. So as you alluded to, Lancaster has such a strong history and foundation of refugee resettlement. They established their office in 1987, and so they've had decades of welcoming and supporting new neighbors and have seen all the great things that come from that, sort of cultivating into becoming an official welcoming city. And so they did some research in early 2021 as they, got additional funding and resources under the current administration to sort of expand refugee resettlement and immigration services. And so they started doing some research across Pennsylvania, looking at different things like the history of refugee resettlement in communities throughout Pennsylvania, the schools, the English classes that are available in the community, the affordability and availability of housing, different factors like this, and ultimately came to the conclusion that Harrisburg is such a great place to expand the refugee resettlement effort in South Central Pennsylvania. And so it's been awesome to open this brand new office and build off what Lancaster has already been doing and, grow off some of the organizations that have been here longer than Church World Service, like Catholic Charities, and even Jewish Family Services and International Service Center really got involved with the Afghan and Ukrainian programs. So having that collaboration has been awesome to see.
Yeah, it's not like a competition.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's all the same common goal of trying to help people. How does the process go? Like, take us through what the process is to where Church World Service gets involved and is able to actually help resettle someone. Where does it start? Who initiates that first conversation? How does this go?
Yeah, definitely. So there's obviously a lot of stuff that happens before a refugee family arrives in Harrisburg. So, a refugee legally is defined as someone who's fleeing persecution based on a variety of factors, whether that's their beliefs or religions or social group, etc. And they are unwilling or unable to return to their home country because of fear of violence and persecution. And so then they have to, go to the United Nations and make their case for why they can't return home and then legally become a refugee. And then once that happens, they have to go through a variety of processes, including medical clearances, security and background checks, cultural orientation classes, different things like that. So there's a whole host of things that happen before they come to Harrisburg. But once they're officially approved as refugees and are granted the travel authority to come to communities throughout the United States, we get a notification that a family is arriving, and we get a bio about the family. And that's where we really start to, prepare and get ready to welcome and support that family. So once they're here, we pick them up from the airport alongside community members. We provide them with a hot welcome meal that they would be accustomed to in their home country. We help them navigate the public benefits, get them enrolled in English classes, get their kids enrolled in school, help them find employment, a whole host of things that come after they arrive in Harrisburg.
How many families would you say you have helped since opening in Harrisburg?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, we opened in February of this year. And so in fiscal year 22, which ran from our opening in February until September 30th, we welcomed 36 Afghans total and 90 refugees from other countries around the world, predominantly from Syria and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And as we look into fiscal year 23, which we're in now, we have the stated capacity to welcome 110 refugees and then between 55 to 75 Ukrainians as well.
So I know we mentioned Ukrainians as being a possibility, whatever, but you are planning on seeing more of an influx.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of a unique model where they're being privately sponsored, and then we're kind of filling in the gaps. But there might, potentially be down the road a scenario where Ukrainians are actually being directly resettled by an office like Church World Service.
So, so much of our conversation so far has been about what is Church World Service, what are the nuts and bolts, how does it work? And then there's the emotional side to this, which I imagine has to be some of the most unbelievably fulfilling, like emotionally fulfilling and satisfying work that anyone could possibly do.
Definitely. I think people who get into refugee resettlement, share that common goal of wanting to welcome and support our new neighbors, because we understand that these people, refugee resettlement for a lot of people is life-saving, and it's the only opportunity they have to rebuild their lives in another country. And so we take that responsibility very seriously, welcoming them and supporting them along their journey to self-sufficiency. And it's, so awesome to hear their stories and their backgrounds and all the talents and skills and abilities that they bring with them, and to see that flourish in their new home is just an incredible thing.
I know there are professions out there which you are told don't get emotionally attached to your work. You're going to end up being disappointed. You're going to be too attached. You're going to be too connected. You're not going to be able to separate that home life balance, so to speak. My guess is that you want to be emotional. You can't do this job that you do without being emotionally attached, without having that emotional connection to the families that you're serving.
Yeah, absolutely. It's critical. Like you said, it still is important because this is a job and it's a professional field that, we don't burn ourselves out. We don't try to, do too much that's unrealistic. But in order to, fulfill our mission and really position our refugee neighbors to thrive in their new community, you have to, and you're almost, incentivized to have that emotional connection to make sure that you're giving it your all every day to put these people in a position to really thrive.
Are there times where you feel like you're kind of on that line of I'm doing too much, or I'm a little too emotionally attached to this?
Yeah, there's always, wake up calls, especially when we have months of high arrivals. It can feel very chaotic sometimes, and it's important in those moments to take a step back and look at the bigger picture of the value and the importance of this type of work and what it brings to our communities here in the greater Harrisburg area. So yeah, it's definitely a fine line that you have to balance. But you never want to lose sight of why you're in this work to begin with, and making sure that you're showing up each and every day to, give it your all when you can. And then, making sure that you do have that work home balance to recoup and get at it the next week.
How challenging is it at times? I mean, I know not every single one is challenging, but has it been challenging at times when you come across a family that really went through the ringer to get here? Like they went through hell just to come out on the other side, and hearing their story is really tough.
Definitely, yeah. It feels like we have so much to give them, but usually it's the exact opposite. Once you really develop these relationships and hear their stories and put them at the center of this type of work, they usually have a lot more to give you than you could ever give them. And, just hearing the challenges that they had to overcome, how just motivated and determined these individuals are to rebuild their lives and have success here in the Harrisburg area is just really neat to see. And we want to continue to provide platforms for our new refugee neighbors to share that. And so just two quick examples of how we do that. Number one is something called the New Speakers Bureau, which was stood up by our Lancaster office. It is a program whereby we want to give a platform to our refugee neighbors to share their stories, because we think that so many times when we hear about refugee resettlement, it's often, sort of hijacked by the media and portrayed the way that they want it to be portrayed. But we want to make sure that our refugee neighbors are at the center of their own stories and have the opportunity to articulate that to a variety of audiences. And so we provide training to some of our refugee neighbors and make sure that they have a voice and a platform to share their stories. And then another really cool project that we have going here specifically in Harrisburg is called Church World Service Marketplace. And we give training and resources to our new refugee neighbors, specifically our women refugee neighbors, who bring all sorts of really cool skills and abilities with them, and make sure that they have the resources and the training so that they can make some handmade products and then sell them at local events. Like we participated in Arts Fest and Capona and Wolfstock, and we want to continue to do those types of things.
That's wonderful. How long after you make that initial contact? You mentioned how CWS will help with English lessons, help find occupations, things like that. How long does CWS stay involved with the family?
Yeah.
Until they say, you know what, you guys are good, and we need to go help other families that were in your position when you came here?
Yeah, great question. So, the focus is always on self-sufficiency. So officially, we welcome and support all our refugee neighbors, no matter what, for the first 3 months. Bare minimum, we provide 3 months of services. Oftentimes, that's not enough. Mm-hmm. And so we have other extended service programs. One is called Matching Grant, which is focused on employment and self-sufficiency. Another is called Preferred Communities, which is a year-long program that walks alongside our most vulnerable populations, maybe someone with a severe disability or medical condition, a single mother, someone who might be a part of the LGBTQ plus community, that just need that extra hand-holding to make sure that they're at a place of self-sufficiency. And so, depending on what program they're enrolled in, bare minimum is 3 months. We can go all the way up to a year with some of our programs. But no matter what, we always tell our neighbors that we're always going to have your back. And so even if you're not officially one of our clients anymore, our door is always open. We'll always, answer texts and phone calls to make sure that you have the support that you need to, settle in our community.
A quick story, and it just, having this conversation reminded me, my previous line of work, I was a reporter. I was a local reporter. And I remember doing a story about a family, a Somalian family that had just moved to Mechanicsburg. And we did the story they literally within days. And we set it up through CWS out in Lancaster. They had us kind of visit the families. They were kind of getting settled in and things like that. And it was in October or November, so it was right around this time of year. And just like it is right now, it was the first snow of the year. And for them, it was their first time experiencing snow. 2 little kids and a mom. The dad hadn't arrived yet. And the sheer enjoyment on their face. I mean, it was as if the first time that they had smiled in months. And because here they are experiencing snow, and they're putting little snowballs together and things like that.
Yeah.
And you get to experience that kind of that feeling so many times over, which I guess goes back to what I was saying before about the fulfillment aspect of it. Like, you're helping people realize maybe not necessarily their dreams, but you're giving them a life. You're giving them a hard reset on making sure they have a life to live.
Definitely. I think one thing that's been really cool about our new office is we've been really intentional about providing opportunities for our community to get together and celebrate each other. And so 2 examples, the springtime of this year, we got a bunch of families and volunteers together to take them to Lake Tobias. Oh. And it was just so cool to see, all the stress just come off of people, and just smiles and everyone lighting up and just having a great time together as a community. And then we did something like that just recently at Mount Airy Orchards in Dillsburg. Yeah. Again, just provided it was on a Saturday, provided a great outlet for people just to have fun and relax and enjoy themselves. And so they get a little bit of, an authentic Pennsylvania.
They get to pick
fall.
pumpkins or pick apples. I mean, they can't do it. I mean,
exactly.
They're not doing that elsewhere.
Yeah, and so we want to continue that. We're actually trying to...
Take that, Columbus.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to plan a winter activity. I think what our plan is moving forward is to have an activity like that every season. And so we're looking at maybe getting some people to the farm show, or going to ski round tops, snow tubing, something like that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. You have to enjoy it.
Yeah. Welcome to Pennsylvania. Here's the farm show.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Best milkshake, though.
Yep.
And on that same line, though, I mean, you do have another great event coming up. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, this International Friendsgiving event that's coming up around Thanksgiving. A big fundraiser for you guys, correct?
Correct, yeah. So this is our first annual fundraiser. We're not at the point yet where we feel like we can put on a full gala like many nonprofits who have been around a lot longer do. We hope to get to that place, but we thought, so many of our refugee neighbors bring such cool cultures and traditions, and also really good food with them. And so we wanted to provide an outlet where they could share their recipes with a caterer who's going to take their recipes and make a whole bunch of to-go meals. And on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, November 26th, at the Haiti Mosque, which is right by our office, we're going to package all these meals together, include a little bit of a recipe book, and then sell the boxes for $20 each. If you can't get to the Haiti Mosque during that time, it's going to be from 4 to 6 on that Saturday. We're also going to have a bunch of volunteers, going to be like Meals on Wheels, getting them out to various places throughout our community. And all that money is going to go back towards CWS. Our ultimate goal for the event and Giving Tuesday combined is $25,000. We're a little over halfway there now. So, yeah, we would greatly appreciate any community support around that.
Friendsgivings are so much more fun than galas.
That's right.
It is unbelievable. Friendsgivings are the greatest thing in the world. And to have an international flavor Friendsgiving sounds like a lot of fun. You said Saturday, November 26th from 4 to 6 at the Haiti Mosque.
Correct, yeah. And if you are interested in buying a box or just making a donation, you can visit our website, cwsharrisburg.org. And on the homepage, you'll find all the information that you need.
And where can people go for more information if they want to help CWS, whether it be through donations or you know of a family that you want to help resettle or whatnot? Where can people go to get more information on CWS in Harrisburg?
Yeah, a few different ways. Probably the easiest, again, is to go to our website, cwsharrisburg.org. There's a tab on the top that says Get Involved, and it has a whole bunch of different ways you can get involved. You can also visit us. Our office is located right by the Governor's Mansion, 2101 North Front Street. Plenty of parking. We're on the 3rd floor of building number 3. And then, of course, if it's easier, you can always just get in contact with one of our staff members. I think we do a really good job as a small team making ourselves available because it really does take everyone for refugee resettlement to work. And so we greatly appreciate and value all the support that we've already received from the community and are looking forward to continuing to grow our operation here in Harrisburg.
Alex, this has been tremendous. Thank you so much for telling us more about Church World Service in Harrisburg and the really incredible work that you and your team are doing every single day.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
All right, that's the word, Harrisburg. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.